Hello, Noa. Thank you so much for joining SheLeads today. I am so excited to have you on the show and just to get to know you better, so thank you.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Noa, you are the co-founder and chief product officer of Odo Security, which is a cybersecurity startup that specializes in zero trust network access. So, first of all, I'm going to have you explain that in like very fifth grader terms, just because I'm not familiar with cybersecurity. But before Odo, you were a software engineer at Google, and you also served in the Israeli army in Unit 8200, which is a very prestigious elite unit in Israeli intelligence. So yeah, let's just get started there. Tell me a little bit about your experience in the army, and then more specifically, give me a sense of Unit 8200 and why it's so prestigious and why so many great people come out of it starting their own ventures like yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I think that the army in Israel is kind of, everyone sees it differently. It really depends on your experience. So as you probably know, army service in Israel is compulsory. It's 2 years for girls, 3 years for guys. So you don't really have a choice. But then, of course, you want to make the most out of it. I have to say that the first 6 months, I was quite miserable. It's a very rough transition. I served in a 2 weeks basis. So I was 2 weeks at serving at my army base, and then went back home for one weekend, which was really tough for an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
So at first we were studying so much. It was a really tough and intensive course. It was actually 6 months of training, which is really unique. I have to say that I think that it may not be worthwhile for the army. Train us for 6 months and then have us like 1.5 years in there.
Yeah.
I studied network researching, so everything that's got to do with protocols, how networks are working, down to the actual bits and bytes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was based in Jerusalem, in the base there, and that was such an amazing experience. It's kind of like being in a camp for 1.5 years.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. So did you go into the army having that passion for networks, computers, and just cybersecurity in general, or was it something that you discovered in Unit 8200 and then it almost just blossomed from there?
So I really discovered it. I actually didn't have a lot of urge for computers.
Mm-hmm.
I was more in the mathematics part. I studied physics as well, but I wasn't really exposed to computers. And then in the army, I got really a sense of how interesting it can be. And I actually taught myself programming during that time, and then created a project inside to my unit.
Yeah.
So it was quite cool because you have a lot of I would say free hand to do what I wouldn't say whatever you want, but you're in there. Everyone are 18 to 22-year-old. And you can just leverage whatever capability you have to contribute.
Wow.
So that's what I did.
Yeah, amazing. So we'll get back to almost the lessons you learned and how you apply it today. But I'm wondering, so now after you completed your time in the army, and most Israelis I know travel for a year or so and then come back, go to school. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you went to Tel Aviv University right away and almost just got started. So tell me about that thought process. Did you know what you wanted to go into right away, or how did you almost plan your career?
So that's actually a funny story.
Okay.
I thought I'm going to be, like most Israelis, it's exactly like you said, I'm going to be a waitress for a year, earn some money, and then go to South America for 8 months.
Right.
And then after, like 2 weeks, I was done with that and registered for school. So yeah, it's one thing to imagine it, but the other to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any. I knew I wanted to study mathematics,
Okay.
and I knew I wanted to go to Tel Aviv University. I wasn't sure about the computer science part actually. At first, I thought to combine mathematics with economics maybe, and then it was my mom that said something really interesting. She said, "Are you even interested in economics?" And I started reading some magazines and making sure that this is something that I like, and it turned out I didn't. And so computer science was the next logical way to go, and I'm so glad I did that. It was such an interesting degree.
Yeah, amazing. And then after that, you got a software engineering role at Google. And then Odo happened. So tell me a little bit about Odo and what drove you again back to cybersecurity and just the inspiration behind it and getting started.
Yeah, sure. So what drove me in was my two co-founders.
Okay.
I have to say, I never imagined myself as an entrepreneur. So I did some, projects in school, in high school, and also obviously in the army, but I never saw myself. I think I maybe was too scared to define myself as an entrepreneur. And if you ask my two co-founders, they're one of them is my husband actually, and the other is one of his best friends and mine as well now. So if you ask them, I was about to leave, like I think it was 3 or 4 times at the process, because I was just, like you said, I graduated the army, and then I started uni, and then I went to work. So everything was really, one after the other. I had everything planned, and then suddenly leave everything aside and just start out your own project without ever knowing if it's going to work and when.
Yeah.
That was really scary for me. And I actually already registered for my MBA. And at the last moment, Gilad, our CTO, sat me down and said, "Noa, you're not leaving us. We're doing this together." And he was just really convincing.
Amazing. So you definitely had those doubts early on. And I think, so at that point, were you married to your husband at that point, or were you guys weren't married then?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, we were just boyfriend, girlfriend.
Okay, yeah, great. So you didn't even see yourself as an entrepreneur. So what made you take that leap and you were just like, okay, because it's almost like a shift in mindset. And I think Israelis, it's naturally in them in a way where they're willing to take those risks and they almost see what's the worst that could happen. But for you personally, what made you be like, okay, you're right, like what's the worst that could happen? I should start this.
Yeah, I think it was definitely the opportunity.
Yeah.
The fact that I had this situation where I had 2 really amazing co-founders that were both quit their jobs. Actually, before we got to the project, or my husband and I, boyfriend then, traveled to 6 months to New Zealand and Australia. Cool. And then we came back and we quit our job for that. So we came back, we were without a job. Gilad also just quit his job, so it was just an amazing opportunity, and I felt like I was going to really regret not jumping on that opportunity. And I think that in some sort of way, I felt that I could be really good at that. I have a lot to contribute that is not being expressed as a software engineer.
Nice. And so I heard in your 20-minute leaders talk that it was almost in the founding stages, the other 2 co-founders, they almost knew their role, whereas you could have gone the business development route or the tech, and you could have been a CTO or whatever. So you're the chief product officer. Tell me about that process for how to navigate where you found your contributions most.
Yeah, so it's actually also an interesting story, because I think that it's always like that, or maybe a lot of the times, especially in Israeli startups. So you have a very defined 2 roles that always exist in every Israeli technological-based startup. So you have the CEO and you have the CTO. And everyone are always talking, and I also think it's true that a 3-member team is always the best. And then you have the question, what happens to the other co-founder? What is he going to do? Yeah. So I didn't really know. From a short research, I just defined myself at first as the COO, because that was kind of the natural flow of a startup. You have the CEO, CTO, COO. That just made sense. And the idea was to just do whatever Or and Gilad are not doing. We just actually, it didn't really matter. You do the same thing. So a CTO is never the same in, 3 different startups, and a CEO, everyone has the same, a different definition to the role, same as what I did. So it was kind of amorphic, doing everything. And then we kind of, as we progressed with investment and, kind of got out there, we got a few feedbacks for, no, what do you do with the company? And I couldn't really explain it. I was all over the place. a little bit in the tech, a little bit in customer interviews.
Yeah.
You know, after retroactively, I realized that this is actually a product role. But I was not sure exactly how to explain it, and you know, everything is about the storytelling, and I couldn't get this question answered right. And then it was actually one of the I think it was like an accelerator that we went to interview for. That one of the women there said to me, "Oh, so you're basically the product manager." And then it had a nice ring to it, and I said, "Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing." So that's how I rolled to this role, the company.
So okay, I think first, before we get into what it takes to be a great CPO, I want to know. So you're the product manager, CPO. Tell me what Odo is, and tell me a little bit in a way where someone who really doesn't know cybersecurity in this whole industry. Tell me a little bit about that from their perspective.
Yeah, sure. So Odo is like you said, a zero trust network access platform. So what does it mean except for the big intimidating buzzword? So if in the past things were really easy, you would physically go to your place of work, physically plug in your network cable, turn on the computer and access the servers that were physically located in the same area.
Right.
Things were easy to secure. We had what we call a perimeter, like a wall surrounding that network with an entrance, a firewall serving as a guard.
Okay.
Deciding whoever can get in or out, and whoever was inside was secure, and whatever was outside was not secure. It was quite easy. So security was not as amorphic as today. But nowadays you have resources, everything, both in the cloud, hybrid, on-premise environments, all over the globe. You have users connecting from everywhere, from different devices, especially now, with everything that's going on. And, comes the question, okay, let's say that I connect from my personal smartphone to my company email server. Does this phone count as being a part of the network? Is it not a part of the network? Everything is much more amorphic. So you can't really put a perimeter around it. And this is where the zero trust network access approach comes in. So we provide security that, on its basis, it's zero trust. Trust no one. We don't have inside is good, outside is bad anymore. We have everything is bad unless authenticated and authorized.
Yeah, okay.
So this is the idea behind it. And we have a complex architecture that supports that.
Okay, great. No, that's so helpful. And I could tell you're a great CPO based on your storytelling and ability to explain it. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
I did that quite a lot of times.
Yeah, you got it pat down. I love it. So in the early stages, when you did become the chief product officer, was there a learning curve? Because I think from just research, it doesn't seem like you had product experience, and maybe you didn't necessarily, as a software engineer at Google, you maybe didn't talk to customers as much and really understand the tech other than the technical side. So tell me, was there a learning curve, or was it challenging at times?
I think that the learning curve was more about the actual, processes and the systems that and the tools that I'm expected to use.
Yeah.
Other than that, it was really intuitive up until today. So I'm not sure that I'm doing it 100% correctly. But you know what? I think that a lot of the times it's not necessarily the best practice to go with what other people have decided this role is.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually, I also I was asked a few times to also participate in a product manager's podcasts or interviews, and I always said no because I was kind of insecure that I would not be able to answer, the exact words and all the methodologies and how everything is going on. So yeah, I had a learning curve. I still do, but I try to focus on actually getting the job done rather than doing it correctly.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. And it's almost like every time you do something, you learn from it, and then that improves the next time you do it. So
exactly. Hopefully, I'm not building like a bad basis for that, but I am. I'm keeping in entrepreneurship in general, and also in product manager, I'm always keeping like mentors around, so I'll be able to ask them about some things and learn from them as I go.
Yeah, amazing. So going back now, looking back at your time in the Army, and specifically those first 6 months where you said it was very challenging, especially the transition, can you look back now and see, oh wow, like I learned a lot during that time that now I can apply to Odo, specifically when Odo's going through challenges and something where I have to get through?
Yeah, I'm sure I do. Can't really point to anything in specific, but I think that this is exactly like you asked. It's not a coincidence that you have so many people going through, like almost 100% of the people drafting into the Army, and Israel being the startup nations, and so many successful companies coming out of here. So can't really point at the link between those two, except for obviously the technology that we learn at a young age.
Yeah.
But definitely there is something there.
Yeah.
Probably, we need to mature much faster, face complex situations, something around that area.
Definitely. And I think the book, The Startup Nation, is such a great book because it really, at least for someone that's not an Israeli, it really takes you into the Israeli culture and really explains a lot of the reasons why Israeli is the startup nation. And so I think that's great. And a lot of lessons are derived from the Army. So I think that's great.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So give me a little sense of, so obviously on this show, it's mainly Americans, and I talk about being a female entrepreneur or just being a female leader, especially when there's still a gap in female founders and funders. So I want to know a sense of being an Israeli entrepreneur, a female Israeli entrepreneur, and whether that's even a discussion in Israel in a way, or whether there's a challenge in finding funding. But I guess you have 2 co-founders, so maybe that's even a plus to have that diversity. But just give me a little sense of what it's like to be a female entrepreneur, and if you've had people surrounding you this whole time and supporting you, or any challenges.
Yeah, sure. So I think that, like you said, about the diversity in the team that we have, I think being a female entrepreneur was a plus in our team, and rightly so. I think that this talk about diversity is probably getting old, but we can really see that in our company. We can see how different people have different opinions, and when I think about most Israeli teams, they would be 3 exact duplicates of one another for a founding team. So probably 3 guys coming out of the Army with a good idea. The 3 of them are equally technological, equally talented, and they're just assigning roles randomly. You'll be the CEO, you'd be the CTO, you'd be the VP R&D, and let's go. Yeah. And this can be, rotating, and I think that most VCs are used to seeing this type of team. And at first, I was a bit uncomfortable with that. So I thought that since we're different than the other teams, that would be a minus, but it was actually a plus.
Yeah.
And I could see that investors were really excited about our team. And generally, so I think that it's funny because there were so many amazing women before me paving the path for me to be able to say what I'm going to say now, which is my biggest struggle is to be seen as an entrepreneur who is also female and not a female entrepreneur.
Definitely.
So I have to say that obviously I get, if they have, in some conferences like panels talking about cybersecurity or something like that, all of them need diversity. I'm happy to, just use whatever opportunities there are out there. But, all those, female entrepreneur lists and things like that, I try to avoid simply because I don't want to be seen as a female entrepreneur, like I said. Just a professional entrepreneur, which happens to be a female.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. And that's why it's even tricky and not uncomfortable, but I hesitate to ask the question simply because it shouldn't be like that where you're a female entrepreneur, right?
And it's just you even,
Yeah, exactly.
It's natural. I think that that there is no difference between guys and girls. I mean, I'm obviously a girl,
Yeah.
so that's not a question. So it's okay to ask about that, same as you would ask anyone else, whatever differentiator they are there. But it just became such a big topic to talk about that I'm trying to also make professional.
Yes. Yeah. No, exactly. And I've talked to a lot of my guests actually say where almost when you project this idea and where you have in your mind and you project, okay, I'm a female leader, then it's almost like this self-fulfilling prophecy where you come into the room with this almost lack of confidence and,
Exactly.
this perception that everyone thinks that you're female, you don't necessarily belong, but it's really, you need to believe in yourself first and have that confidence, and then it will project out. So
yeah,
I think
definitely.
Yeah.
For me, I'm female, I'm blonde, I'm 1.5 meters, and I have a high voice, so I can't really blend in an audience in a cybersecurity conference.
Yeah. No, and you shouldn't blend, so it's great. So
yeah.
So tell me about, so yeah, you're in cybersecurity, in that space. There aren't many females, and what do you think needs to change to have that change? That makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So obviously, that's, it begins in education. I think that easily I would also not have gone to that path. Like I said, I was debating to learn, to study something else.
Yeah.
But I think it's a matter of time. So times are changing, but it's not changing as fast as we would like it to.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that the curve rising up. We need to wait a few more years for it to get to the point that we want to.
Yeah.
But I can say that I have tons of female friends from the army or not that are now either entrepreneurs in technology companies or engineers in the industry. So yeah,
nice.
It feels like times are changing.
Yeah, great. And then, so from my understanding, is Odo completely in Israel, and your team's in Israel? Everyone's in Israel, or?
No, we actually have a U.S. presence as well. So our sales team sits in the U.S.
So, okay, so I'm interested because obviously Israeli culture differs tremendously from U.S. culture, and just there are differences in, for instance, you could explain the word chutzpah and things like that. But I'm wondering, have you had to, explicitly noted this difference in culture and almost like teach your teaching team that, okay, when we're talking to you, like we're coming from this culture, and like, does that, is there this bridge that you have to build?
I'm sure there is. So first of all, there is the language gap that people may not be aware of, but it's really tricky. You run your entire business in a different language.
Yeah.
And no matter how good you are in that language, it would never be native for you. So you would always fight the right words.
Yeah. And
if you don't, then you choose another word, and then it would not exactly, express what you wanted to.
Yeah.
So I'm always struggling with that. I think that for us, maybe I think that our team is a little more like calmer, I would say. So it's not as dominant, the difference, but I'm sure that we have and will tackle these different points where we have to overcome the culture gap.
Definitely. And I think that's a challenge that a lot as remote work is becoming more popular, even obviously nowadays. I think that's definitely an interesting topic to consider almost. And
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and
it's
I'll keep that in mind. I'll let you know if I get into one of those situations.
Yeah, okay, great. So Noa, I'm gonna finish off with 2 fun questions. No,
Michael did that as well.
No, they're different than Michael's. These are easier. Trust me.
Okay.
So one is just a passion or hobby that you have that's just unrelated to your work.
Playing the piano.
Oh, fun. Okay, great. I love it. So, see, not hard. And then, okay, the last one, which, by the way, first of all, Noa, I've loved this, and just thank you so much for coming on the show.
Sure.
But, okay, a fun topic. What is a fun or weird talent that you have that no one else really knows about? And so I'm going to go first. Okay. So here's blueberry. I do blueberry throwing and catching. So I'm going to give you a preview. Okay. So here we go. Okay, let's see how this goes. There you go.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Thank you.
Do you have like another blueberry there waiting in case you get that one wrong?
Of course.
Okay, so I actually have a picture here. So
oh, amazing.
My back is really bendy.
Okay.
So I just found this picture from when I was younger.
Oh my goodness. So did you?
Yeah.
Did
this
you?
is just an example.
Did you do gymnastics or anything like that? Okay.
Yeah, for like 10 years.
Oh my God, I love it. That's a great one. And I also love your picture in the back. Do more of what makes you happy. I think it's a great poster.
Did you get it?
Yeah, I love it. Okay, well, Noa, thank you so much. It's been so great having you on the show. So many lessons I've learned, and I've just loved it. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Carly.
Of course.
Bye-bye.
Bye.